Although a young country, Australia as a democracy has come a long way in its education. In fact, education and the success of a country as a whole are two highly correlated concepts. For example, a country may have a pool of highly enthusiastic and talented teachers who, if supported properly, could increase the skills that are needed for the development and maintenance of the fast-paced modern society. However, if the government does not provide sufficient support for those educators, the education system will be stifled, and hence those skills will have to be imported. Many opportunities for many Australians will be foregone. During the 19th century, Australian colonies had a very small population which was mostly concentrated around the main centres. First half of the 19th century was still dominated by the penal system, while a number of industries, such as agriculture, were being established. Education was very poor, with no set standards, and it was usually run by religious institutions for those who could afford it. Others would usually be tutored by the wife of a local professional, such as a magistrate, doctor, or a lawyer. The gold rush of the 1850s changed the dynamic when the country saw an influx of free population. The government increasingly recognized the need for better education, and it provided funding for teachers, schools, and textbooks. This funding did not extend to the church-run services until well into the 1900s. With the funding came strict guidelines, which prescribed the merits as to the curriculum, as well as the behavior of both students and teachers. Today, though, most of these rules are outlawed and would be considered as socially unacceptable. Punishment was used regularly to enforce those rules. Students were expected to enter the classroom in a particular manner, bow to the teacher, sit when reading or writing, hold their pens, and they did not have a choice about which hand to use when writing. Schools were generally under-equipped and understaffed. Many teenage students were put in charge at schools. However, education was not compulsory and absenteeism was high. Many children only lasted for a few years before dropping out. Even when compulsory education was introduced in the 1870s, it was very difficult to enforce. The advances in technology during the Industrial Revolution created a demand for new and better skills. This led to an improvement in education around the turn of the century. Primary education was increased to 8 years and secondary to 4 years. This system remained the same until the 1950s. Students in private schools outnumbered those in government schools. Girls left school earlier than boys. As a federation, Australia shares its powers between different levels of government, and education is constitutionally state's domain. The Commonwealth Government sets the national agenda for educational policy to ensure the consistency in education across the nation and to provide a helping hand to the states. Some of the initiatives are school-based innovation, support for disadvantaged schools, better education of girls, and more recently the development of national curriculum and the national testing program.